What up, y'all? So, 2025 was probably the biggest change in gaming I've ever had in my life. And whether that's for better or worse, I'm still not totally sure. Before I get into the games, I want to explain what this series even is, and how this year was different for me. This is basically my journal, but for video games. I've been journaling real life stuff for years, and last year I finally started doing it for games I play. Because future me is going to forget half of this, so if nobody watches this, that's fine. This is mostly for me in 5-10 years from now, who wants to remember what the hell I was even thinking. The main thing that changed for me this year is how I play games. In previous years, 99.9% of the time, if I started a game, I finished it because I'm usually really picky with what I play to begin with, so dropping stuff just really wasn't a thing with me, and I always only played one single player game at a time. This year, I did the opposite. I started playing multiple games at once, I tried games I normally wouldn't even touch, and I actually dropped a few games, purposefully, which is wild to me, because I've probably dropped less than 5 games in my entire life before this. I also actually wrote notes while playing this year, instead of trying to remember everything at the end, so this video should be more thorough than what I did last year. So before we talk about what I actually played in 2025, I want to discuss and recap what my plans were at the end of last year. At the end of my games I played in 2024 video, I said my most anticipated games of 2025 were GTA 6 and Crimson Desert. Well, they both got delayed till 2026, and I also said I wanted to do another Baldur's Gate 3 run with mods, play Stellar Blade, restart and actually finish Hogwarts Legacy, and do a hard mode playthrough of FF7 Rebirth now that I have the PS5 Pro. And I did not do a single one of those, so yeah. Also, I think there's spoilers for every game mentioned, so you've been warned. Also, one last thing before we get into it. In last year's video, as I was making it, I was finishing up Metaphor Refantazio, and I actually dropped it. The game was great, and if you want, you can hear what I have to say in last year's video, but that was until I got to the Devourer of Flames. Such a bullshit boss. Unless I'm missing something, I've never felt so cheated in a game before. I played the whole game through hard. I lowered the difficulty to easy, I looked up guides and specific builds, and nothing. Hours of getting my ass whooped. And if it wasn't for the charm mechanic, I'd probably play through it, but according to everything I looked up, there's no counter for it, and the second it was used against me, everything went to shit. I had enough, so I dropped it. Editor Relit here. I'm kind of at a loss for words, so I was recording footage of the Devourer of Flames for the video, and I kind of just beat it, so I don't even know what to say. Like, I got like the setup where you make him weak to fire, then you add fire repel to a character, and then when he does the, I think it's called burn down, it repels it and basically nukes him. I finally got that to go off for the first time, and it basically just won me the fight. First time charm didn't destroy me. I did set it to easy mode, but I'm not joking. I think I literally tried like for 5 hours to beat that fight before I dropped it. But yeah, I felt the need to include that in there. Anyways, back to the video. Now, the first game of the year was Dragon's Dogma 2. DD2 was the biggest roller coaster I've had with any game this year. I grabbed it on sale, mostly because the trailer looked cool, and I had always heard the first game had a cult following, so I didn't expect it to almost lose me in the first hour. The character creator blew me away, like genuinely the best one I've ever used, but everything after that, clunky movement, slow spellcasting, weird pacing, I honestly thought I wasted $40. If I wasn't so stubborn about getting my money's worth, I probably would have dropped it right there. Then something clicked. Once I actually started unlocking skills for me and my pawn, the game kind of just opened up. My pawn would randomly do this sick-ass archer combo, and it felt so real, it almost made me forget it was an AI companion. And I weirdly loved how weak my character was early on. Getting knocked down and having to be helped up made the whole party feel like an actual team instead of just NPCs following me around. That's when it started to remind me of Breath of the Wild in the best way. Not the story, the feeling of walking towards one thing, seeing something else, and suddenly you're on a completely different adventure. Except here, combat was way more fun than anything in Breath of the Wild. DD2's combat might honestly be one of my favorites ever once it gets going. But as much as I loved the freedom and exploration, it wasn't perfect. A couple quests drove me crazy, the ones where the game tells you wait a few days but still highlights the entire search area like it wants you to find something now. And Harv still not having an ox cart might be the most quietly annoying design decision I ran into all year. By the time I hit the 20 to 30 hour mark and started switching vocations, I finally understood why people worship this series. Every vocation basically feels like a completely different game, so much so that switching from Archer to Mystic Spearhand made me feel like a beginner again. It was almost frustrating, but in that this is actually kind of amazing way. But eventually the shine wore off a little, the enemy variety wasn't great, and the difficulty completely disappeared. Once you understand the combat, you just melt everything, and as someone who loves story moments, DD2 never really gave me that one big emotional punch I was hoping for. Even the Unmoored World, which should have been that moment, got spoiled for me ahead of time. Still, I couldn't stop playing, even when I was annoyed, even when I got lost, even when I was tired of seeing griffins for the 50th time. Something about this game kept pulling me back in. And that's kind of the magic of it. It's messy, uneven, and sometimes frustrating, but also weirdly unforgettable. The kind of game where the exploration and combat make up for almost everything else. If they ever drop a hard mode or a big expansion, I'm diving right back in. Also, side note, if you care at all about Dragon's Dogma 1 or 2, you need to watch this video by Punk Duck. Actually, I take it back. Even if you don't like video games at all, which I don't know why you'd be watching this if you do, but even then, you should watch this video, because I think this YouTube video is the greatest video of all time, at least out of any that I've seen. And if even half of the meta level shit that he says in this video is true, then Dragon's Dogma 2 is probably the greatest game of all time, unironically. Definitely go check the video out.
Because Dragon's Dogma 2 is not Dragon's Dogma 1. And it's not Dragon's Dogma 2 either. It's Frog Fractions 5.
And then I tried jumping into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and honestly, my entire experience with the game can be summed up by one thing. I became violently determined to beat the first guy in Dice. I don't know what came over me, but I must have restarted the game like 10 different times just to try again, and the crazy part is I barely played anything else. I got maybe an hour or two into it, but mentally I just wasn't in a single player mood at that point in the year. No matter how much I wanted to sink into a big RPG, my brain just wasn't having it. So instead of forcing it, I just dropped it. Not forever, and as of time of recording, all the final DLC just dropped, so definitely a game I will prioritize in 2026. In April, I tried Dark Deity 2, and honestly, this game basically felt like a love letter to classic Fire Emblem. The art style, the maps, the pacing, everything just clicked with my brain immediately. But the timing couldn't have been worse. April was chaos for me, and even though I liked what I saw, I knew I didn't have the bandwidth for another game, so I ended up dropping it the same month. Not because the game did anything wrong, just because life was loud and I had too much going on. It's one of those games I hope to come back to, maybe on the Switch 2 since it's out on there now, instead of playing on my MacBook. Unicorn Overlord. This one's funny because I genuinely thought it wasn't for me. I downloaded the demo when it first came out, saw units moving at the same time, assumed it was a full-on real-time strategy game, and instantly backed out. I've always been more of a Fire Emblem turn-based grid type of player, and I really did think I just wasn't built for anything more complicated than that. Then a year later, I saw a random YouTube clip where someone paused the game in mid-combat to issue commands, and I had this moment of, wait, that's allowed? I re-downloaded the demo, and I ended up buying the full game within an hour. What shocked me most was how deep it gets. At first, it felt like a comfortable Fire Emblem style strategy game, easy to pick up, simple to understand, but the deeper I went, the more it made me rethink how I even define strategy in games. It kind of rewired my brain the same way Baldur's Gate 3 did, except in the tactics department instead of the choices and consequences aspect. Like, oh, games really can go this deep. I didn't expect to go from casually trying the demo to sitting there 40 hours in, tweaking unit compositions, testing tactics, and actually caring about optimization in a way I'd never do for strategy games. Some nights I'd spend an hour just rearranging my squads. Other nights I'd rush through missions because I was tired but still wanted to see what happened next. It was one of those games that can meet you wherever your brain is that day. The biggest thing this left me with wasn't one specific moment. It was the realization that I might have been selling myself short. I went in thinking I'm not smart or quick enough for the RTS genre, and after my mind-blowing realization of pausing the game, I came out realizing this. It pushed me, but in a way that felt exciting instead of overwhelming. By the time I hit credits, I had a couple critiques, but honestly, this was one of the most surprising games I've played all year. The kind I dropped instantly at launch, then ended up putting 60 plus hours into it without even noticing. And it's one of the few games from 2025 that I'm still thinking about, the kind that quietly raises your standards for an entire genre without you realizing it. At some point this year, I also tried Lords of the Fallen, all because the trailer for the 2.0 launch made it look way better than the game I remembered it looking like at launch. And the co-op system, genuinely one of the coolest parts. As long as I owned the game, any of my friends could play just by joining my world. They didn't even need to buy the game. In my head, that was the perfect plan. Get my friend to try it because it's free and co-op, and then I could ease him towards Elden Ring. And the funniest part is, it actually worked, but way quicker than I expected it to. I started the game and had him join for a bit. After a couple hours of playing, I went to go watch an NBA game. Then I came back and asked him if he wanted to keep playing, and he just says I never stopped. I was confused because I thought he needed me online to keep playing, but turns out he bought the game instantly, so mission accomplished. In the game itself, it's fun, but the lantern system got old fast. Cool idea in theory, but constantly checking it, constantly swapping between worlds, constantly worrying I was missing something. Nah, I'm good. The moths help, but they're sometimes easy to miss, and eventually it just felt like homework. Still, it did show me how fun Souls games can be with full, real co-op. Even if the netcode was laggy as hell, we actually made it all the way to the end and beat the final boss, only for the game to glitch out after we beat it for the ending cutscene. The cutscene went straight to a black screen with my character model floating there. Ended up having to skip it and another scene after it. That was a funny but not foamy moment where I was like, alright, fuck this game. Let's get to Elden Ring. And then in May, Lords of the Fallen accidentally pulled me right back into Elden Ring. The plan was to replay it with my friend, the same one I'd just run Lords of the Fallen with. But I got too hyped and started a new character on the side while we were still playing Lords of the Fallen. I made it to Rhea Lucaria pretty quickly, but instead of rushing towards DLC like I thought I would, I decided I wanted to try and 100% the game. Every dungeon, every item, every little corner, thoroughly explored. And doing that made me realize just how much I've missed on all my past playthroughs. Like I never noticed the teleport gate sitting on top of that marble pillar in Siofra River. 5 playthroughs and somehow never saw it. Stuff like that kept happening. It was almost like half of every region was brand new again. Even Caelid, which, let's be honest, I still didn't want to explore. The birds and dogs are almost as bad as the rune bears to me. But even with all that excitement, May was a busy month for me. I barely played 10 hours of games all month, and Elden Ring ended up getting paused for a while. Then in July, my friend bought the game himself after a month or two break after beating Lords of the Fallen, and that instantly pulled me back in. I made a brand new character just to run through Limgrave with him until we got caught up to my 100% file that I was working on to keep pace with his level and progression. And honestly, it was a blast. My favorite thing to do was turning into a literal goblin during invasions, using the Mimic Veil, hiding somewhere stupid, waiting for the blue hunter to show up, and then ganking the invader the second he got close. Never stopped being funny.
He's already on us.
Where?
Eventually, though, the co-op limitations caught up with us. No torrent, constantly running on foot, tedious reconnecting. It just wasn't as seamless or as fun as Lords of the Fallen's full co-op system, and I think that slowly killed his interest. By September, October, we were somewhere around Atlas Plateau, heading towards Rykard, and he just kind of fell off of it. I kept playing on my own for a bit. I made it past Morgott and was headed towards the mountaintops while trying to 100% everything before replaying the DLC, but life just got busy again. And that pretty much sums up my 2025 Elden Ring arc. A bunch of hype, a bunch of restarts, a lot of rediscovery, but not enough time to fully finish what I started. And then in July, I decided to replay Fire Emblem Engage, mostly because I had the Switch 2 in my hands now, and there was nothing else I actually wanted to play on it. I never got to play the DLC the first time around since I beat the game before most of it dropped, so this felt like the perfect excuse to go back. The problem was I was still playing Unicorn Overlord at the same time, and this was the moment I learned that I never played multiple games at once for good reason. I was bouncing between saves like I suddenly developed gaming ADHD. nothing was getting done. Once I committed, I grabbed all the DLC bracelets and started the Fel Xenologue. And honestly, Engage still has one of the worst stories, voice direction, and overall writing of any game I think I've ever played, but the DLC, at first it actually had me. Nil/Nell had potential, and that moment where she wipes out Brodia's Royals and then Firins, I was fully locked in. And then, because it's Engage, they pulled the, oh, they were corrupted twist. My excitement died instantly. And from there, it just got more and more predictable. Obvious villain, cringe dialogue, and then that ending beat that went way past dramatic into what the hell are we even doing here territory. I will say this though, getting to keep the 3 wins was sick, but the DLC's momentum completely overshadowed the main game for me. Going back to the normal, even more terrible story after that, my excitement nosedived. I was halfway through the campaign, still kind of enjoying the gameplay, but I kept wishing the maps let me bring more units so I could actually use all the DLC bracelets instead of leaving half the rings and roster on my bench. By mid-July, I hit a wall. Part of it was the game, but honestly, a lot of it was life. My other YouTube channel had the requirements to get monetized, but my AdSense kept getting rejected, and I couldn't figure out why, and I just didn't feel like doing anything, not reading, not gaming, nothing. Because that and the fact that the Switch 2 still didn't have anything I wanted to play, Fire Emblem basically became the thing I was forcing myself to play just to justify owning the console. Eventually, I dropped it. And then, somewhere in the middle of the year, I finally played Expedition 33. I picked this one up on a night where I just needed something to get out of my own head. I was burnt out, tired of my Elden Ring rerun, and for the first time that I can remember, I consciously chose a game because I wanted to escape into it. And then what do? I start it up, and I sit on the title screen for like 20 minutes just listening to the music. I've never been that dialed in to a video game soundtrack before. With Nier Automata, I really noticed the theme park music and thought it was great. With FF7 Rebirth, I thought damn near every track was flawless, but with E33, I literally couldn't get myself past the start screen. The Alicia theme had me entranced, and the music was great all around. By like the 2-hour mark, I bought the whole soundtrack to the game. First time I've ever done that for a game. So going in, I did know a couple spoilers, mainly that the game was like FF7, and I inferred someone was going to die. Even with that information in the back of my mind, there's no universe where I would have guessed they'd kill Gustav. He was literally the last person I thought it would be. The moment genuinely stunned me. But the thing that really stuck with me wasn't the twists or the FF7 parallels or even the ending choice. It was what this game did to my headspace. This was the first time, I think, since FF7 Rebirth where I let myself get fully consumed by a story again. I'd play for hours, go to bed thinking about the lore, wake up wanting to watch theory videos, then dive right back into it. It reminded me what it feels like when a game fully takes over your brain. I won't retread my whole review here, but I'll say this. It's probably the most emotion I felt with any game in 2025. It didn't just become one of my favorite games this year, it became one of my favorites, period. In August, I got caught up in my own hype for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series again. I had just made a whole video talking about how it's basically the only piece of Pokemon I'm still excited for, and with a Pokemon Presents on the horizon, I started getting way too excited about the idea of an Explorers of Sky remake, so I picked up Super Mystery Dungeon, mostly just to scratch that itch. The first couple of hours were slow, not terrible, but slow. I kept pushing through, hoping it would grab me like the older games did, but eventually I just fell off of it. I'm not even sure when I stopped. Sometime months later, when I looked back, I realized I'd put in almost 8 hours and made it all the way to the fake Giratina fight. I don't think it was the game's fault. I think there was just too much to do and too much going on in life. It was just kind of one of those years for me. And then there was Drag X Drive. This is funny because out of everything Nintendo showed coming out this year, this was the game I had circled. Not Mario Kart, not Donkey Kong, not Metroid. This was the one I thought could be their Rocket League, the game I could play for years. And in that moment, it was the most fun I had on the Switch 2. The controls felt great in my opinion, despite what everyone else says. The chaos was fun, and I even hit one of the craziest game winners I've ever had in any sports game. But there was something missing. The gameplay is fun, it really is. There's a real skill ceiling there too. You can see the potential from the moment you start messing around with the movement and brakes. But the main features I was hoping for just weren't there. No competitive ranked mode, no queuing with friends to face randoms, and once I realized those features weren't in the main game and not just cut for the demo, I realized this game had no chance. That stung a little, because this was the one Switch 2 game I was ready to take seriously, the one I wanted to grind, learn, improve at, sink time into, and the demo reminded me just how fast a game can go from this might be my next obsession to this might burn out in a couple months if the foundation isn't there. I've made a couple videos on it, but to sum it all up, this was the biggest swing from hype to disappointment for me. Then after the whole Drag X Drive disappointment, I just wanted something to play on my new system. Donkey Kong Bananza wasn't really my type of game on paper, but the praise around it was so high that I figured why not. And honestly, the first 30 minutes were really solid. Not some massive emotional hook, just a really clean, polished intro that actually made me think maybe I should finally give platformers and really Mario Odyssey a chance. The more I played, the more interesting it became. I liked this game, and at the same time, I could tell I should have been liking it way more. I mean that in a good way. Even if it wasn't grabbing me fully, I'm pretty sure I can understand why people call it a Game of the Year contender. By the third or fourth layer, I was in this rhythm of this is fun, but the bosses are dying in 15 seconds. It's definitely on the easier side, but I really love the structure. That Breath of the Wild style freedom where you can either beeline straight to the next layer or spend hours exploring sublayers for fossils and bananas. Games that support both playstyles are always a huge bonus in my opinion. I think I dropped it after probably 15 hours, and that pretty much confirmed how I felt earlier. I genuinely appreciate this game a lot. The polish, the ideas, the structure, but it's just not my kind of game. And at the time, something I had heard really recently on a podcast stuck with me. If you're only playing a game just to beat it, why are you even playing it? And it made me realize that, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing here. I jumped into Silksong the day it dropped in September. I did try out Hollow Knight, I think for like 30 minutes a couple years ago, but it really just didn't click with me. The first hour of Silksong felt pretty easy until the Bell Beast humbled me twice in a row. I beat it on the third try, took my little victory, and was cruising along until I hit the birds in Greymoor. Literally wrecked my shit. 8 hours in, I hit the string lady boss with the 2 phases, and this weird feeling set in. I was enjoying the game, but I wasn't getting any satisfaction from beating bosses. It has the same learn the pattern and try again loop that you get in Elden Ring, but for some reason, there was no dopamine hit at the end of it. Maybe it's because there's no stat upgrades between attempts, or maybe because there's no real loot drops. But even when I'd finally win, I just felt nothing. But I kept going. By 9 hours in, it turned into a love-hate thing. I'd rage quit constantly, and I can't even remember the last time I rage quit a game. Most of the time, it wasn't even the boss. I'd die exploring, sigh, and just shut the game off for a couple hours or the day. And the funny part, and my hot take is, as someone who probably died 100 times in my playthrough, I honestly don't think the game's even that hard. Every boss became free the moment I slowed down and stopped playing greedy. It just took me 10 attempts to get myself to slow down. Around 15 hours, the game finally settled into this groove where I was genuinely enjoying it, even if the victories still felt empty. I got the Fey Down Cloak, and holy fuck, that was a wake-up call that I do not want to play any more platformers. Probably the biggest dopamine rush was realizing I was done with Mount Fey. But eventually, I dropped it. Not because it was bad, but because I wanted to complete the next game on this list before the following game on the list came out, and so Silksong just fell into the backlog. I finally started Triangle Strategy in mid-August after picking it up on sale. I originally played the demo years ago, but back then the whole facing directions and backstabs thing threw me off, since my only experience with grid SRPGs was Fire Emblem. I guess I came around because this time it clicked pretty fast. The beginning felt super slow, like 2 hours of talking and only 2 battles, but once I settled into the pace, I really started liking it. The scale system is way more interesting than I expected, and I like how you can try to convince your party, but ultimately it's up to them to decide on how the story goes. The cast grew on me too. I got a guy who can build ladders and traps, an ice mage early on, and that made the combat feel way more flexible. The big surprise was how different this game plays compared to Fire Emblem. Elevated terrain and jump stats change everything. The only part that really felt like Fire Emblem to me was when I fought X-Arm Exham, I don't know how you say it, on that giant sand map and ended up turtling in the bottom right corner. The story had some cool surprises too. I definitely wasn't expecting Serenoa to be the king's son, and I really liked the moral gray areas between all the factions. Finished the game on October 11th, 49 hours and 41 minutes. Super solid game, not my all-time favorite, but way better than I expected, and I definitely want to replay it someday and try the other routes once I get through the rest of my backlog. I jumped into Final Fantasy Tactics literally the day after finishing Triangle Strategy, which honestly had me nervous. I've waited years to play this game, and I didn't want that timing to dampen anything. 5 minutes in though, the voice acting had me hooked. The visuals, I still don't know how to describe it. I both love the art style and kind of don't. I don't know, it's weird. Also, Argath was so fucking annoying. I'm so glad he died and doesn't stay in the story for long. But this game humbled me fast. I was stuck on the map where Tetra got shot, grinded the whole party to level 10, still got wiped, grinded even more, hit like level 15, and I was still getting destroyed. At that point, I genuinely felt like I was misunderstanding some fundamental part of the game. Then I realized I just needed to kill Argath, so I rushed him down first instead of trying to clear the whole map, and the fight was over in 2 turns. So dumb of me. Also, the AI felt really smart, not just enemies, but even guest characters. The only thing that's actually annoying so far is holding the speed up button and accidentally skipping lines of dialogue with no way to review them. And then came WeGraph. I don't even know how many attempts it took. At least 20, and I was like 5 levels higher than him. Every guide I looked up talks about the 1v1 being tough, but that wasn't the problem for me. His Lucavi form was the part destroying me. Also, side note, I'm really enjoying grinding the game, at least so far in the first 3 acts. I'm currently somewhere in Act 4, just killed our brother. I'm still going through it slowly, might finish it by the end of the year, might not. Also, I really hope we get some kind of sequel or DLC one day from the jobs they cut from the War of the Lions edition. Months later, mid-November, I picked Silksong back up while co-playing Final Fantasy Tactics. It was rough at first because I had stopped right at the Fire Tree boss, but after an hour of attempts spread over a couple of days, I finally beat it, and that single win pulled me straight back into the game. I had completely forgotten what I was doing, so I just started making progress towards the main quest for the 3 Cogworks bosses and any side content that distracted me. I got so into it that I paused FF Tactics just to focus on Silksong, so it turns out the 3 Cogworks bosses are not actually bosses, but you need to get their melodies. Did that, I beat Silk, and then stopped to look up how to get the true ending in Act 3, because realistically with my backlog I knew I wasn't about to replay the entire game anytime soon. Turns out you need to finish a ton of quests, so I spent hours doing all of that. Eventually I finished everything I needed and headed into the final boss before Act 3. Somehow it was literally the only boss in the entire game that I beat first try, and I went in totally blind, didn't know their moveset or anything, and I beat the game. Total playtime 33 hours, 12 minutes, 8 seconds. Then I realized I forgot to move the Flea Caravan to Fleetopia, meaning I accidentally locked myself out of Act 3 entirely. My last autosave was 6 hours earlier, and there's no universe where I was about to redo all that, so I called it there, decided I got too much other stuff to play. I'll replay it when the DLC comes out. And then I started a new run a couple days later. Not as a main game, just something to slowly get through while listening to YouTube or something. It's a perfect game to play while listening to something. Next up is Dispatch. I'll be real, Dispatch is not even close to my type of game. Never in a million years did I think I would even try something like that, but the praise was insane, the YouTube shorts I saw were hilarious, and for $30 I figured, why not? I got through the intro and instantly understood the appeal. The gameplay itself is simple, but upgrading heroes and unlocking weird little skills is way more fun than I expected. And the choices? I was way more curious about them than I thought I'd be. I thought it was awesome that they show you what percentage of players picked each decision at the end, and then the absolute GOAT of the game, Chase, showed up, and his character had me dying. Favorite person in the game by far. The game also had legit emotional swings, but in Visigal, look, to me, no part of her twist ending made sense. I'd believe she hid the energy source for the suit to show our character like as a surprise before I'd believe that she was some some mastermind double agent. That whole ending sequence with her was just stupid to me, but everything leading up to it I thought was super good. I finished it in 2 days. PlayStation says it only took me 5 hours, which honestly shocked me because it felt way longer. I don't know if I'll replay it, but I'm glad I played it at least once. Also, at the end, only 4% of players didn't cover for Sonar. Why would you cover for him? Fuck that guy. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the games I played in 2025. Going into next year, my plan is pretty simple. Finish FF Tactics, keep chipping away at my Silksong rerun on the side, and hopefully knock out a few things from my backlog. I picked up the Oblivion remake for $30 on Black Friday, so that's probably going to be one of the first games I start in 2026. I'm not sure if I'll run it alongside with Tactics or wait to finish that first. Outside of that, my most anticipated games haven't changed. Crimson Desert and GTA 6 both got pushed back this year, so they are just carrying over into 2026. And as for 2026 itself, I don't actually know of many big releases yet, which honestly might be a blessing. Maybe I'll finally get some time to clear through the mountain of games in my backlog. Death Stranding 1 and 2, Stellar Blade, Liza P, Snake Eater, Ghost of Yote, Spider-Man 2, Astrobot maybe, not sure how I'm feeling about platformers now, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Sekiro, FF10, FF7 Rebirth Replay on PS5 Pro, Baldur's Gate 3 rerun, Tears of the Kingdom rerun on Switch 2, and Borderlands 4. But for that one, I'll probably wait for all the DLC to drop first, and maybe I'll even get my friend to run Lords of the Fallen 2 with me. I don't know if they announced a release date, but I'm pretty sure it's a 2026 game, but it depends if he's still scarred from Elden Ring. Editor Relit here again. Since I overcame what made me quit Metaphor Refantazio, my first instinct was, oh, maybe I could finish it, but honestly, I don't remember anything. If I did replay it, I would probably run through the whole game again. At the same time, I think there's a chance they do a Royal Edition or whatever they're going to call it, where they add an extra 20-30 hours of content. So honestly, I don't know what to do. If I just wait, if I watch like a recap video and then continue the game from there. Yeah, I'm undecided, but I guess we'll find out in next year's video. Either way, I think 2026 is going to be a great year for gaming, and I'm looking forward to seeing what surprises hit, what I actually end up finishing, and what games take over my life the way a few did this year.
She'll never paint again.